just gonna let the viewers roll in because it always takes a moment. I keep getting stuck to this Velcro thing.
Hi.
All right, hi everybody. My name is Dia Dynasty. I'm a professional dominatrix in New York City, as well as a BDSM facilitator and educator. And today I have a very special guest who, let's say, does integrative BDSM.
Ooh la la. What a tease.
Right. And I'm going to let her introduce herself.
Hi, my name is Mistress Wild Iris, and I'm an herbalist dominatrix. I am in Oakland, California.
Okay. And tell us your the titles that you've been given and the titles that you give yourself, as well as your pronouns.
Well, one of the titles that I've been given is Purveyor of Pleasure, and accordingly, I'm a pleasure activist. I think that pleasure is the number one way to inhabit our bodies and to be alive and to really claim what it means to be a human and a brilliant being. I know our society tries to make us into machines, and it's up to us to reclaim our bodies and enjoy the beautiful pleasure of being alive.
Okay.
No.
So
They're not herbs.
So I'm just gonna say for all of you guys who have questions, if you could just hold them till the very end. Hopefully they're applicable and sincere and polite. And then also your pronouns.
She, her.
Okay. She, her. And so can I just ask you before we get deeper into your personal story, what you mean by pleasure, and also what about too much pleasure?
Fascinating. By pleasure, I mean the enjoyment of being in a body that is designed for being touched, for being in interactive relationship with the world. By pleasure, I mean openness to the subtleties, to the touch of the wind, to the caress of a lover, to to being evoked, into having ourselves being opened at any moment.
Is pleasure always positive? And if you want to come back to this later,
great.
we can
I love
totally
it.
do that.
I would say pleasure can be. It depends on how we work with it. I would say that pleasure is how it's almost neutral, and it's what we do with that really directs us in one direction or another.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I use the word sensation for the neutrality aspect of it, because pain is also a sensation. But a lot of people have this kind of emotional attachment or detachment from pain where it's like not pleasurable and not agreeable. Would you say that that's more in line with maybe what you're talking about?
Well, then it's interesting when people start to have pleasure and pain mashed up. You know, our body's just sensors and receptors, and the ability to feel. And it's I started getting really deep into my BDSM journey in my early 20s after I did a Vipassana sit, and I was sitting there with pain, extraordinary pain and awkwardness, and like beautiful rushing pleasure through my body, like cascades of bliss.
Wow.
And like deep discomfort. And when I just surrendered to it, those were the moments that the ecstasy would fill me, and that there was no longer this really strong like approval of one and hatred of another. Yeah,
it was like the yin and the yang were both coming at you. Hi.
Hola.
So just for our viewers who don't know what Vipassana is, it's a form of meditation that requires a pretty strict posture, right? It's like a single posture, usually like sitting, like not laying down comfortably, for a long time. Like a long time.
And observing sensations as they pass through your body. Just observing, letting them go. Yeah,
not fidgeting, not like changing your positions, and that's really, really hard because it's like you're not using any like rope or restraints. Like nothing is holding you in that position but will. Yeah. Awesome. So, speaking of your kinky experiences, can you tell us about some of your maybe first kinky experiences?
Well, I lived in a vegan co-op when I was in college, and at one of our house parties, I went down into the dungeon, or into the basement that was converted into a dungeon.
Oh, okay. That was the difference.
The workshop, and there's a member of my co-op strapped to the table being whipped with vegetables.
Whoa.
And it was amazing. Leeks and collards and kale and chard, and I was just like, what? What is going on here?
Wow.
And at the time, I was having like in this internal battle with my relationship with food, just like not knowing how to eat. I grew up with a standard American diet, and I really didn't know how to feed myself. And so seeing her strapped to this table, like being tortured by food, was like this profound metaphor for how I was experiencing that relationship.
Oh, yeah.
It was like,
okay,
what is going on here?
It was like the externalization of the, not knowing. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it was like
Very
this ultimate role play. And I just was like, I don't know how to process this. This is epic.
Yeah.
I'm so excited this is happening. This is something that's happening to me. And it kind of was plugged in then. I didn't know anybody besides these people that were playing with in weird ways. So it just sat for a little while. And I joined an improv group shortly after that, a theater improv group. And we were asking the question, what do I want? And it's like, what's your fantasy? And I had this fantasy of being just completely overwhelmed by honey.
Okay.
And like this feeling of just being so devoured as I was devouring, like this mutual becoming, just totally
saturated.
Totally saturated.
Like inside and out.
Yeah. So I did this piece where I laid on the floor as a friend was dripping honey into my mouth for an hour.
Oh my god.
It was it was so freaking intense. Oh my god, and honey would go in my eyes and like down my throat.
Okay, but you were swallowing but also kind of spitting it back
out too.
It
was like this, and it was this extraordinary, like, honey, ecstasy, it's the bees making love with billions of flowers. It's like the ultimate of like nature pleasure.
Yeah, like
and at the
same ultimate sex secretion of nature.
Right? It's so good. And like then to have it like in my eyes and like choking on it and being like, oh, but it's so good. It's so evocative. It's so extraordinary.
Yeah, and the color and the viscosity of it.
Oh, it's gold. A bee orgy. Yes. Yeah, right in my mouth. A bee orgy in my mouth.
Bee and human orgy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's hot.
Yay, Mistress Blunt.
Hi.
Wow, that's quite okay. So you kind of turned that experience of like not really knowing what you were doing with food or what food was doing with you into an art piece.
It was just turned. I mean, it started to unfold. Yeah, I mean, my quest with food and nutrition and nourishment and connection with nature just started to unfold in this really like savage way. And the bee ecstasy terror situation was like one of many things that started to help me really develop my relationship with food and nourishment.
Yeah, but also kink.
Oh my god, and kink. yeah. I mean, kink. It's like, what is kink? It's just like extreme playing with no rules and like using these external devices and methods to break apart my mind and reorganize in a way that then makes sense and is artful and it's like poetic and profound and
So between that time that you discovered the food flagellation and then the honey orgy performance, did you like apply kink ideology to it? Like, were you
No, okay. I had zero of that lingo.
Okay.
Nope.
Okay, so you were just like, I feel like doing this.
I was like, I want to, and I think it started with this, I want to know more. Like, I want to know food. I want to know nourishment. Yeah. And things just, things show up as we need them to for us to process. Yeah. And I'm a very visceral, like,
I can tell.
Touchy, like sensual person. My mouth is like so active, and my pleasure receptors are so on high. And so
be polite, everybody.
It's mine. It's not yours. It's mine.
No non-consensual face stuffing.
No. Gross.
Wow, that's awesome. So that, okay, so that wasn't necessarily sexual for you.
No, it wasn't sexual at all.
Can you talk about something that was a little more sexual, but still kind of like in your developmental stages?
Yeah, I think the first time I started meshing, it just like started happening, I was laying in a hammock with a friend, and he was carrying this knife around his neck. And I was super attracted to him, and I love knives. I'm also a cook, and so I'm just like constantly like, ugh, the power, you know?
Yes.
And so I took it out and I started tracing it along his skin, and we were just so relaxed and so in luscious space. Started tracing it on, and he's like, press harder. I was like, okay. And so I pressed harder, and he started bleeding, and he all of a sudden his eyes flickered back, and he went into this transcendental state, and for like 30 seconds, and he was just like flickering back. I was like, what the fuck? This is so hot. Awesome. This is intense. This is hot.
Yeah.
What is happening? I want this. I want to facilitate this. Like, what is this?
Yeah, what is this?
Yeah.
So did you guys talk about it afterward,
a little bit, but his emotional capacity to talk about it was very little, and I was just like, I don't even know what's happening. This is crazy. I'm so fascinated. I don't know.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, and so it's like I would talk. I had friends that were in kink, and so I brought it up to them, and they were like, "Oh, I don't cut people."
Okay.
I was like, "Okay."
Who does?
I don't know.
Who do I talk to?
I was like, "Oh shit!" So it kind of just plugged in for a while, and it was just this fascination. I was like, "Oh God, remember that time that happened?" And it was just like I would come back to it. And yeah, it wasn't, and partners would we would play around choking and like kind of really innocent stuff.
Yeah, really innocent
stuff. We're like all bondage, and it was really fun.
Yes.
But it wasn't till it was about 4 years ago that I was taking a nap, and I was thinking of this friend that was he was in this state in his life where he was having a really hard time getting clear and strong on his path, and I was like, go see somebody that go see an herbalist, I at the time I was fascinated with herbs, and I still am, and that's part of the story, but I was like, so he went and saw an herbalist, and she gave him the herbs and got a little crush on her, and it was really cute. But then he stopped taking the herbs, and I was like, God damn it, if I'm going to be working with people in a really intensive state and helping them through a transformational process, I need the tools and the capacity to see what's happening deep in their psyche.
Absolutely.
And I was like, I think an herbalist dominatrix.
The light bulb moment.
Yeah. And so then I found out about the Gates, which is a house of dominatrix women in Emeryville, and started training there. And I found out about an herbal program and enrolled in that program and started training to be a clinical herbalist. And that's now learning to combine the two, and it's a process,
Yeah.
Seeing how to assess what's happening in a situation and bring herbs to help catharsis and transformation and follow through and grounding and opening and boundaries and they can do everything.
Yeah, and she's not just talking about marijuana or psychoactive.
I'm not actually not talking about marijuana.
Yeah, no. And you just answered pretty much all the questions that I have, so we're gonna go deeper into all of this.
Nice.
Because you were talking about, I guess, one of your first kinky sexual experiences being the knife. The blood. So where did you go from there? As far as your own personal kind of journey and not so much a professional one. Do you mind talking about that?
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's interesting. In my personal life, I became very delicate with my sexuality. Okay. And also ravenous. And actually started really turning my sexuality to nature and to this, it might sound really strange, but more universal sexuality and sensuality with my garden and
yes, okay, so a more expanded idea of what sexuality can be, in that you're not necessarily focused on genitalia all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I love what's it called?
Roadhead.
I'm really wrong. I'm a raunchy, horny person. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, but it has to be the right kind of chemistry.
Absolutely.
With anybody.
No, no, that's the thing. When when I was in my early 20s, I have a lot of sexual energy, and I was just like, you know, just grab some toys. I think. Grab some toys. That's great. That's basically, I love it. Great suggestion.
You can also ignore them if it doesn't make any sense to you. It's been interesting. So what do you mean more delicate, though?
Well, I'm very, very this is interesting to say this in front of everyone, but I'm really sensitive.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're like an open vessel.
I'm really, really open.
Yeah.
And when I'm in a partnership relationship, I'm really, really, like, my heart is so open, and I'm in like such such a powerful, vulnerable, intimate space. The sexuality is such a part of it, but it's been, I think that part of what's been really a relief with my dom work, I love having many people that I get to explore with, and also having it be like really boundaried, that I only like expose as soon as I have sex with somebody, like I'm all in. And so it's like, for me, getting to have my dom work in just like all these beautiful, epic encounters that are in such a tight container that they don't come into the rest of my life. Yeah. Like it's, they can help me weave my psyche and unfold issues that I'm working on in my regular life that wouldn't be appropriate for me to work on maybe with somebody that I'm working with, like role play. Like I can love role play. Yeah. I used to have a business where I had an employee, and I had this issue that we were working on, and then a client came and he was like, "So I have this issue, or I have this role play that I want to engage in," and it's like it was exactly the issue that I was working on with my client.
Wow!
And like this happens all the time.
Oh my goodness!
It's like, and so we got to like play in this really crazy way, and like have all these ideas that were just like.
It's like
totally processing.
Embodied problem solving, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just seems to all line up for you very.
Totally.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, for me, my dom work is such a fantasy come true. It's like such a dream come true. It's like this ability to explore anything and everything without bounds.
But within bounds.
Within extraordinary boundaries.
Exactly. It's like within that container, you can go anywhere with this person. Oh. Yeah. So, so can we talk about how that has, I guess, like, how are these issues that you were mentioning, you know, like maybe one of the biggest ones that you were having, how has the element of professional BDSM helped you work through, for example, something that you felt kind of wounded by?
I mean, I feel like roleplay is probably my strongest. That's how I have my biggest learnings with all of my BDSM experiences. I will constantly find that in my relationships, I'll have clients like present the exact scenario that I'm working on with my romantic partner.
Amazing.
And it's like to get to explore it and to have such illuminations about what's actually happening in my partnership is profound. You know, it's like it's a space that we both are so excited to be in and so excited to explore. And it's such a reminder that that we're all just mirrors of each other, and so what's happening in my romantic relationship is really a mirror of what's happening in me, and so then it's happening also, like it's being brought up by this other person. Yeah. And so it's like this divine interventions with resolution. Yeah, because it sounds like when you have a larger problem that feels, you know, like more encompassing, but you get to kind of work it out within a session with role play and a client. It's almost like the video game version of it, and you get to kind of like win that video game, and then you get to come back into your larger, more consuming situation and be like, oh, I already. It's cathartic.
Yeah. Totally
transformational.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And I think that because it's so like, there's like no weight when like we come to play when I'm in the scenes. We're here to play and explore and like, and that's what regular life is too, but it also like there's like, I don't know, there's like a lot of thoughts that go on in regular life that are...
Regular life doesn't have a container. That's
Yeah,
the thing. It feels so
really true.
big and overwhelming, and you don't know when it starts and when it ends, other than like waking up and going to sleep. And sometimes like the smaller container, it's like when cats feel safe because they're in a tiny box. It's like that helps, you know, like to to just feel like you can tackle this because it's not so enormous. Yeah, and I feel that like in such a large way that that BDSM, you know, is that smaller container. And it sounds like you really discovered that like super early on too. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. I lost all my questions. Oh, here. So I know you wanted to talk about maybe the herbalism a little bit more, and can you talk about how you specifically bring that into your pro-dom craft?
Sure. So there's a couple main ways that I'm bringing it into work with my clients. I'm bringing it both into the scenes. So there are herbs that are really evocative for energetic clearing. That's always great. So clearing clients when they come in. Clearing throughout the scene. I have this little spray bottle that I will sometimes spray during the scene, and sometimes when I like to switch.
Okay.
And so I'll like sometimes my clients will like grab it and spray it. I'm like, you learned. It's so good.
Yeah, that's great.
Infusing oils with medicinal herbs that have different effects, like aphrodisiac herbs. There are herbs that engorge reproductive tissues, so that's always fun to play with. There's herbs that help create really clear boundaries.
Oh, that's nice. Wow.
I mean, yarrow is great for creating boundaries.
Okay.
If we're thinking on the physiological level, yarrow heals bruises, it heals cuts and wounds and scrapes, and it does the same with our energetic boundaries. Ocotillo is great for boundaries. It's like very like queen alchemist. Like I will alchemize any situation that comes in front of me. It's pretty intense.
Wow. Does it have an intense presence? Like it has strong smell, or you know? Like
well, it hasn't. It looks very intense. It's like the queen. It grows in the southwest, in the desert. It's like the queen of the desert. It looks like a crown. They can be anywhere from like 6 feet to 12 feet, and they're huge. Ocotillo has a base that's usually around like that size, and like thick stalks that have really strong spikes.
Oh, okay.
So it's a spiked plant, and on the top, the flowers are like they're coral and waving in the desert wind. So you'll see fields of these spiked, towering fences, and people use them as fence posts, like literally creating boundaries around their house.
And this is like a tree-like type of plant.
Yeah, it's kind of like a bush.
Okay, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Nice. Yeah, super powerful for boundaries.
Yeah, okay.
Which it's like that's the best thing, I think. I mean, I think boundaries are amazing, and it really lets us come close to each other. I mean, in permaculture, we talk about how it's at the edge, when we're both at our edge, that the most magic can happen. That's where the most diverse ecosystems are.
Yes.
That's where, like, things are really intense.
Yeah.
You know, like, think about the border of the U.S. and Mexico. It's like, things are intense on the edge.
Yes.
It's like, it's really difficult.
Yeah.
And that's also where the most profound learning is. I was just in Tijuana in the early part of January distributing herbal medicines, and it was one of the most intense experiences of my life. Like seeing so many people with their powerful dreams coming from the U.S. or like being deported, and it's like all these people with their intense, raw, radical experiences, and that's what's happening when we're on our boundaries. Like that's what happens when we meet at the edge.
Yeah, totally. And sometimes it's like, it's, you know, if you don't have any boundaries, then what are you pushing up against? You know, like where is the tension coming from? Or if there is any tension, like sometimes that can be very thrilling too.
Yeah, I think that's the power of tease in long-term relationships.
Yes. So much tension.
Love the tease.
Wow. Okay. So
and so another thing. So I've started to give herbal sessions to clients. So we'll have our regular play session, and then during the session, I really can see what's going on, and if there's an issue that they're wanting to work with, then we have a 2-hour intake, and then follow up every couple months to see how things are evolving. I give them an herbal formula that can help bring any kind of issue into balance, whether it's like actual physiological issues, or more emotional issues. And it's really fun.
So, are you weaving the herbalism into the actual session, or is it like an appendix?
Both.
Okay, cool, nice. But sometimes it's less confusing, I think, in a certain headspace to have it be slightly separate too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, when it's slightly separate, then we're dialoguing about it, and I mean, it's interesting how so much truth can come up without a single word and just in the play.
Yeah.
And just to see how when people cry and when people melt and when people pull back and like where you go in your role play, like that is so telling.
Yeah.
And so it's fucking powerful to combine the two and be like, wow, okay, so we were talking, like you were an adult baby, and then you started saying how you can get away with anything. Oh yeah, because you're a big baby. I'm like, oh, this is interesting, Mr. Adult White Male, saying that you can get away with anything and that you're wanting to be a baby.
That is so
fascinating.
That is so
it's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if anybody's ever thought about this, but it's it's something that we see where when somebody makes themselves very vulnerable is that they're being even more transparent than they actually think they are. And you're talking about this baby. I love the I guess the visualization of that, because one of my favorite skits or not skits, but it's a episode from Broad City. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
Oh yeah.
Where they go to this guy's house to earn money
so good, yeah.
for some concert tickets, and all he wants is for them to clean in their underwear, clean his house. But so they're cleaning, but he kind of is a little bit creepy, and he kind of creeps into the scene from the clothing rack or from behind the couch or whatever, and then all of a sudden he is standing in his living room with a sweater and a diaper. and they're like, all right, well, we're done and we cleaned and, where's our money? And he's like, I don't have any money. I'm a baby. What do you mean? I'm a baby. That was one of my favorite things. And so that just kind of connected everything with not wanting to be responsible, not wanting to take accountability for basically vomiting out, baby puke.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. Yes. That makes even more sense now. I don't know why it didn't before.
Nice.
Sometimes pictures in my head help a lot.
Nice. Yeah, and it's interesting because some people come and they'll not want to work on anything at all. They just want to express and do their play, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
Play is play.
Yeah,
and
play is
it's
play.
Yes, let's do that. And if you want to go deeper and really work with it, and if something feels like it's something that you want to evolve, then that's where we bring the herbs.
Okay. Is there anything that you don't do as a professional?
Well, I don't work with cannabis professionally.
Okay.
I don't have sex with my clients because that's so personal.
That's a different kind of sex work.
It's a different kind of sex work. It's beautiful. It's just it's not for me.
That's totally great.
Yeah.
Are there types of play that you don't engage in, that you find difficult or controversial, say race play?
I find race play, that's what I was just thinking of. I find race play really difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's really triggering for me, and really, I find it so disturbing in my regular life that playing with it, it's how do I even play with this?
How can I even be a good person after
I know,
this?
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's really, but this is so therapeutic, and I've had such profound therapeutic experiences with so other kinds of things that why can this not be therapeutic? I just also find it I don't know, it's hard for me to play with that.
I mean, it's like anything else, it's very charged, but it's socio-politically charged, and it's charged in a way where we don't always know what to do to discharge that energy. I was listening to Dan Savage talk about kind of the idea of transgression. When you're into something kind of taboo based in not just your culture, but who you are as a person. Some people who are into the very, I guess, taboo types of role play, in their vanilla life, they're say some kind of feminist, and then in their in their kinky role play life, they're total like, you know, want to be humiliated, degraded kind of slut. And so it's like that goes for tops and bottoms is the idea of like transgressing that like boundary that you hold yourself in, you know, from 9 to 5.
Yeah, if anybody wants to do race play with me, I'm here. I want to transform this shit. I'm down.
Okay.
I want to get into the dirty and like transform my relationship with it.
Do you want a top or bottom or switch?
In race play?
Yeah.
Anything.
Okay.
I'm down.
Wide open.
Yeah, wide open. I'm just ready to shift my relationship.
Awesome. Well, you are so just like open, like to anything. It sounds. I mean, not anything, but most things.
Most things.
But it's so great to live life so fully like that.
Yeah, it's really. I mean, it's really fun, and I think for me, I have a lot of processing techniques.
Oh, that's.
I mean,
important.
BDSM is a great processing technique, but I have a lot of processing techniques that really help me when something comes up that doesn't work. And I think that's been a huge part of this journey.
Yeah.
It's like to learn my boundaries. Like I started with no boundaries.
Yeah.
Like I am a water sign in astrology. I'm like very watery. I'm like, I will merge with you. And it's gonna be fun. We're gonna have such a good time. But I eventually learned that that's not good to do.
It's so good for you to know that about yourself.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I was like really merging with everybody, and it was like then I realized, oh, this is not helpful.
No.
Yeah, I was doing a double scene with one of my best friends, Mistress Natasha. And she's like, so this thing's going on where you're merging. I was like, aren't you supposed to do that? She was like, we don't have to do that.
No.
I was like, oh,
not every single time.
No, not at all. And so I've learned to stay at my energetic edge, so I can play with anything. It's really powerful when I'm at my energetic boundary. I can be in a really safe and open way that it's not affecting. Like I'm such an empath that if I'm merging with somebody, everything that's happening affects me to the core.
Sure.
And so when I'm able to be in my strength, I'm here in service in such a good way to myself and to this person that I'm with, and that's huge. So it's learning energetic protection techniques is you have more really good.
Yeah, you have more to give that way without giving yourself away.
Yeah, I mean there's so many studies of people that are in many kinds of different healing modalities that have like either shortened lifespans or like really big diseases and like the sucking of minerals from their body, because we literally take on the energy if we're not watching it and aware of how we're working with our energy. We can take on the energy of other people, and that, or like we will literally give our energy to another person,
or they'll suck it out of you.
Totally, like maybe not even wanting to, but just like doing it.
Yeah,
as like that's like how they do it.
Right. They didn't really know that it's not an intention or conscious. Thing.
Yeah, but we don't have to do that.
Nope.
That's the thing.
So where would you point somebody if they wanted to learn how to develop energetic shields and boundaries?
Oh, cool. Well, I work with a particular technique called Illuminated Body, and it's a technique that was developed by this woman, Desda Zuckerman. She's, when she was younger, like the CIA was like, come work with us, because she was like so psychic and clairvoyant and really could see, but she was like, I don't want to do your shit.
Yeah, right.
But she developed this whole process of really seeing the energetic body and learning to operate in the different layers of the energetic body. So it might sound like super floofy and new age, but it's fucking powerful. And so she teaches classes, and then she has teachers that teach how to really be at your edge and do different like meditation techniques to be at your edge. Okay. Also, I meditate daily, and that's really, really, really good. I mean, it's invaluable.
It's I can't recommend it enough. Like I hope everybody at some point starts meditating in their lives.
Yes, it's the best.
It is. So I wanted to also, because we were talking about something that was healing for yourself through BDSM, which was sacred masculinity. So can you talk a little bit more about what that means to you and what you went through with that?
Yeah. Well, I realized in my early 20s, at about the same time that I went to that crazy sex party, that I had a really strange relationship with the feminine. That I was like really out of touch with the feminine, and I was like the only the only images that I had of the feminine were what was projected to me in mainstream society, which was so fucked up.
Right.
And I was like,
it's a very narrow experience of the feminine.
Totally.
Can you, I know it sounds kind of like, it sounds kind of abstract what you mean by the feminine and what you had problems with. Can you give us an example?
Yeah, I mean, like how we're receptive to invitations from people, or how we can, how we receive, how we're soft.
Okay.
Yeah, how we're soft and how we're supple and how we're like flooding and like how emotions pass through us and how we give birth and how we are so like creative powerhouses, how we conceive, like how, and then the masculine being this other force that is it's the completing force. It's the force of like strength and generosity. It's like I visualize if we have a river and the river banks and then the flood of the river rushing through. The flood of the river is the feminine, and the river banks are the masculine. They hold the feminine. They give space for the feminine to flood through.
Interesting, and that's an interesting analogy because for some reason I think the opposite of that.
How so?
Like that the masculine water rushing through, not the water itself, but the action is very active and it's very forceful.
Yeah.
And then the banks would be the feminine in my opinion, just because they're like holding the space, but they're also the container.
I can see that too.
Yeah,
and it's like it can be both ways.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, because then the masculine can also be the force that holds that's fascinating.
All things are true, people.
All things, yes. But when they're together and when they're strong and in unity and when they're supporting each other, you have so much life along the riverbanks. And then it's like you have fish rushing through the water, and you have like the ability to have life on the river. You have trees at the side, like you have life.
Yeah.
And if there aren't riverbanks and there's just like water falling on the earth, then it will either dissipate, or they're completely different ecosystems.
Yeah.
So I realized that I had a really out of touch relationship with the feminine and with the masculine, just like how I was providing for myself, how I was in touch with my creativity, with my sensuality, with my sexuality. Like I was not really in touch. I just had like this rawness. It's like almost, I felt very feral. So I started researching like, what is the divine feminine? What is the divine masculine? What is all this about? Part of when I started doing my BDSM work professionally, I was like, I want to heal my relationship with men. You know, like I have some men in my life that are amazing, but I'm just really wanting to like the story of the patriarchy is just like so oppressive to everybody, and so I just wanted to like learn about what is divinity, the divine masculine, what's the divine feminine, like how can I really embody these archetypes. And so it was fascinating having so many like of my clients come through and just melting, you know, so profoundly beautiful to see, and also like heartbreaking to see like that these like really powerful men like that they felt like they couldn't melt in most of their life. Like they had to hold such a strong structure for their workplace or for their family, and they couldn't express their emotions.
Right.
So like the second they got in the session room, they're just like melting or crying.
Yeah. Now I don't have to be that thing that I am everybody expects me to be all the time.
Yeah, which is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
You know, to have to put on and it can be effective for like getting some massive shit done, but it's also like then we're so out of balance, you know, and it's I've had such I love men. I think men are so beautiful. I love and I have so many beautiful men in my life, my clients. I just love them so much. I think about them all the time, and like and
aww.
And
So it sounds like it worked, like the relationship that you have with divine masculinity as well as just men in general, you've healed through BDSM and like role play, or you know what else have you used in I guess specific BDSM activities to do that?
Well, I find prostate play to be really beautiful for for working with masculinity. Like, for a man to be penetrated is so beautiful.
It is.
Yeah,
it
and
is.
there's an herbalist, James Green, that talks about how men hold emotions in their prostate.
They do.
And how gay men have much lower incidences of prostate cancer than heterosexual men, or men that don't have any kind of prostate stimulation.
Yeah.
And so, like, I've had so many clients just melt, you know? Like, for some it's like it's too much and it's not actually exciting once they get into it. But like for so many men, it's like to be able to open to receive is so nourishing. It's like vitamin P.
Vitamin P.
It's so good.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely attest to the prostate cancer and kind of like backdoor violation feeling, you know, because it's like with a certain generation of men, it's like against, you know, it's not manly to have that kind of experience, or to allow somebody, you know, to do this, or to do it yourself. You know, it's exit only. and so that kind of stuff is so ingrained into a lot of men that they're missing out on so much pleasure because of this idea that's not even theirs.
Yeah, I mean, I see men have like half-an-hour orgasms in their prostate.
Yeah, or like they're just like so somewhere else that so I'm calling their name and they're not hearing me. I love that.
Right? It's so good.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, at that point, I'm like, I am just here as a conduit of your pleasure, and I love it. I mean, being able to be there for somebody else's pleasure.
Yes.
Is like so pleasing.
Yeah.
Right? It's like so, I feel so satisfied.
Well, that's why you're the pleasure activist. pleasure positive, pleasure activism.
Yes. Purveyor of pleasure.
Yes. Pleasure is super important because it's not just about orgasm, you know? It's like so many things. And it doesn't even have to be sexual. Like, I would hope that, you know, your relationship with food has come to a more pleasurable place.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
And you know, it seems like you're able to kind of bring in the medicinal qualities of food too, and really kind of like heal your body as well as your mind and your heart with it. When Iris came in and sat down, she brought this giant jar and there's all this stuff in it, and it doesn't all look like food. And so I was like, oh, is that a, you know, like a medicine thing, like a tincture or something? And she's like, yeah. And so, you know, the idea of like studying herbs and bringing that into like a healing space of play also, I think, is important because it's not as like academic.
Well, all of our ancestors have worked with herbal medicine. Like, as being human, we've all worked with it. And we bring our, like, when we fall in love with these plants, we find, and like we discover all the things that they can do, we bring them into the rest of our lives, where, like, however we can. And like, sexuality in our playground is like, look at what I made. It's like, it smells amazing. You'll feel amazing.
Yes.
And people are like, okay, like, I want to feel amazing. Like, I want my, like, body to feel so engaged.
Totally.
And they can do that in a way that's like, it's long lasting.
Right,
and
sustainable.
It's sustainable, and it's healing, and it's connective. Like,
and it's not necessarily something that they have to like keep doing over and over again, because it already exists. It's like, as opposed to like buying like a new coat or something, you know, like you get the thrill of buying the coat and wearing the coat, but then after a while it fades, and does it still make you feel good? You know, it's like a consumer object. But with herbal medicine and playing with herbal medicine, I feel like that kind of, it's a larger arena of feel good.
Their relationships.
Yeah.
And their relationships with living plants
things.
and like place, like we can go outside and have this relationship with this plant. We can tend it. We can actually, like, it will talk to us. Like, that might sound crazy, but it will tell us things. Like, plants are alive. They are breathing. They are speaking. They are sentient beings that have the ability to express what they will do for our particular body. Like, if we can just listen, like listen with our hearts, they speak in they speak to our hearts. So we need to open our hearts to feel, like, to hear them. But
it's not about using your ears.
No, they speak a different language.
Right.
And so we can learn that language.
Is it vibrational?
I mean, I think it would, from my understanding and my practice, they speak in different ways to different people. So some people see images. If you're meditating with a plant to like really learn what its medicine is, some people see images. Some people hear things. Some people feel like the organ being affected in a particular way. Some people will have experiences with that plant visiting them in the dream, like their dream time, and telling them like what it's going to do for them. I mean, plants, they're amazing because you can like literally take a piece of that plant, hold it, and when you're sensitive enough, you can feel where it works in your body. Yeah. Like you can, like if I hold a piece of tulsi, then I'll feel my heart gradually opening. Wow. If I'm holding rose, I'll feel a particular way. So it's like these plants are so tactile, and we can have these direct relationships with them. It's not like a pill where it's like, okay, and I'm probably gonna get like some kind of liver disease, but like at least it'll lower my blood pressure. It's like, that's not gonna happen when you take like, I don't know, an herb. Right. Like they're not just like one pinpointed molecule. They're a whole set of molecules that balance each other out. So it's like with aspirin was derived from willow bark, and it's salicylic acid, which can be damaging to the stomach lining over time. But willow bark also contains all these other chemicals that are neutralizing and protective for the stomach lining. Sure. And so it's like when we take the herb, we have it as the whole system protect and effect versus the extract. Extract. Totally. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Okay. And plus, if you sit with willow, it will tell you things about being emotionally flexible. Yeah. And like it will teach you emotional lessons and spiritual lessons, and sure, there's these physical lessons, but it's such a merging of all the dimensions of being alive. Yeah. Oh, okay. That's really great news. And pharmaceuticals don't do that. No, because they're not alive anymore. Like, bing! Here's one thing that we can help you with, and it's like a laser that may just burn you. It will probably burn you. So somebody asked about poisonous mushrooms and what they say. They say don't eat meat. Yeah, don't eat them. You can eat any mushroom once. Oh. Okay. I'll leave that to you. All right. That's good to know. So I wanted to ask you about your virtues and vices. Oh, this is really a sweet question. So my virtues, I really love seeing people's beauty and seeing like what is the highest, like I see people's like ultimate beauty and evoke that in our conversations, in how I am with them, and that's I love that, you know, like humans are so magical, like we're so beautiful. We contain multitudes. So epic. And that's like, and so I love reflecting back to people what is their highest, and like helping them like, bring it out. Yeah, bring it out and being in that space together, because that space is so fun, and it's like that's my role. Yeah, that's awesome. I love that feeling too. Like sometimes I'll do it through photography, because sometimes people are like, "Oh, I don't photograph well," and it's surprising. Like, well, it's not that surprising, but as a visual culture, like when somebody sees a really good photo of themselves, it will boost their confidence, you know, big time. Because we're always in motion, and when you have a two-dimensional thing that flattens you, it's not always going to look like you. So that's something that I love doing, same as you, but just with, you know, photography. And then, so what about your that really affects how they see themselves in the world. Yeah, it really does. Wow, and they have something to show the world on their social media. Be like, hey, look, I'm not ugly. Totally. Look, I can look good. Yeah, and it's amazing because so much of our world these days is comprised of these two-dimensional images. And so to be able to step into the world with that confidence is like, thanks for doing that. That's beautiful. Yeah. They do more of it. Vices. Oh, gosh. Well, I'm fucking hedonist. So I was just gonna ask you that, you know, in the beginning I was kind of like, so what is too much pleasure, and how, you know, like pleasure, like let's talk about that, and too much, and what is too much. Well, I can be too much in that pleasure state. I really get off on a lot. I love food, I love sex, I love roadhead. Do you love rock and roll? I love rock and roll. also really, really aware of how I feel, and so if it's starting to steer me in too much of the wrong direction where I'm not able to feel the way that I want to, then I'm learning self-control.
Excellent.
To be able to direct myself as I want. And I'm also pretty self-controlled. So
that's great.
Yeah.
It's different for everybody. It's not like there's, a ruler that fits everybody.
Totally.
So you decide.
Yeah, and it's interesting learning these different layers of happy, like there's short-term happiness and there's long-term happiness. So learning how to interface with those is like, I love food and I fucking love to eat really, really good food. That's really high quality. And like I'm learning to, I love to cook and eat the food that my friends grow and that they raise, and so there's something where I'm learning to, having, it's interesting, like what are addictions from, and like I know when I was younger, I definitely, when I talked earlier about how I would just like had a really harsh relationship with eating and with food, and it was, for me, it was just because I didn't have a story with nourishment from the earth.
Right.
And that was what I was really craving. And so I learned to develop that story and learn to have that story and like eat food that's from the land that I live on or from friends that's really high in nutrients that I've processed in a way that's really good, super high quality or fermented or like whatever it takes for that to be. Yeah. And so then
it sounds like you are now eating with intention. And and that the food has meaning, like it has like substance and nutrients of not just like physical minerals and vitamins, but like where it came from and its story and everything.
And it's fascinating how much of our life is just a story, and so giving ourselves that beautiful, like rewriting our stories and having beautiful, like making them into beautiful stories. Like that's what I feel like we can do here. It's like we can rewrite our story. It's such an open-ended discussion about what we wanted to experience that when we come to a professional and they're like, I want to experience this or transform this or like break through my pain tolerance or like we can rewrite how we are. And when it's somebody that's like that is in this, like I will hold all the space for you in a very strong and very clear way. Like and be like we're like kinky midwives.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
kind of is true.
So it's like helping usher in those new stories of like, I'm actually a very resilient person, or I'm like actually a very open-minded person. Like we can rewrite all these things. Yeah,
and you can choose at any time to kind of rebirth yourself in this other way. And once you decide that you want to do this, this other way, you can have somebody to help you, shed that old skin, be a newborn. Is there anything special that you'd like to tell us about what you're working on or current projects, travels, promotions, anything?
Yeah, well, I'm traveling a lot in the coming months. I'll be here in New York. I'm here in New York until the 22nd. I leave in the afternoon, and then back in March, the 26th to the 29th. In Boston, the 24th to 26th. I haven't been to Boston before, so I'm really excited about that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm traveling through LA March 12th and the 17th, a little bit through San Diego. And yeah, my travel's on my website. It's mistresswildiris.com.
Mistresswildiris.com.
Get it. And also on my Instagram, which is Mistress Wild Iris.
Yes.
Projects, I'm doing a lot of herbal work projects these days, and super excited to see how that's unfolding. It's all about nourishment. And yeah, it's interesting seeing how to work on many levels. Like I'm also working on a project to bring herbal medicine to homeless encampments in Oakland, which I'm really excited about.
Wow.
And so it's
nice.
It's really exciting to see how we can think about nourishment in really intense situations and then also in more longevity, stable situations.
Do you have any, and this is just a personal question for me, what do you feel about, or what do you think about the term pseudoscience? Because much of, like, maybe 99% of the medicine that I practice for myself is considered pseudoscience.
How so?
Like, whether it's Ayurveda or traditional Chinese medicine or herbology or like energetics, energy work and all this stuff. it's like if you look it up on Wikipedia, it's like
so fucked up.
Yeah, and
these are traditions that are thousands of years old.
Yeah,
modern allopathic medicine is like 100 years old.
Right, but it's
it's crazy.
It's that laser beam that people seem to really trust because the laser has been honed by scientific testing and reproduced results, you know, over and over again. And so it's like this, to me, it's this consciousness that that science is law. And
science is a religion. It's a dogma.
Right. And so I don't know. I think that the word pseudoscience is like, I think it's kind of cute, but I also think it's a little bit of an insult.
Yeah, I think it stems from misunderstanding and people that aren't practicing these, because when you practice these pseudosciences, you actually feel amazing. Yeah. You know, these are timed. Ayurveda is the study of life. And like how to take care of our body in a really, really well-nourished way.
Yeah.
And and how to understand our body and how to have these self-ritual practices like ghee eye baths or profoundly amazing feeling practices.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I engaged a few of my friends and we did this eye cleaning where we just stared at a candle flame for like 15 minutes. And when you do that, your eyes start watering, but they're not watering like falling down your cheeks. They just water enough to where they stay in your eyelid and you don't have to blink your eye. And so it's so like, who does this? You know, like it's so fascinating, the things that actually do work, because I think the body definitely has a lot of wisdom to communicate. And when you listen to it, you know, and you're not listening to like external factors of like scientific laboratory research and this and that, then you can decide for yourself what actually is going to work for you. And I think that may be why it like pseudoscience is kind of used, is because it's not the reproducible fact for everybody that takes this one thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and there's also not really money in studying naturopathology or like ghee eye baths. Like there's not really money. You can't patent that. Which is like one of you can't patent sun gazing. Like these are universal tools that are available to the masses. And they're used by the masses. Like it's very a small percentage of society, unfortunately Americans included, that doesn't use these traditional techniques that are so connective to our landscape, like really actually nurturing and nourishing to our bodies. Then like our medicine system is really disassociative and very disempowering, because we're giving all of our healing process to another person to do, to us. When these are processes that we can do in our home, like we can make our chai tea and warm up. Like our bodies will be warmer, so we'll be more resilient to the fucking cold. Like we can do naturopathology, so then we don't need to go to the eye doctor because it will actually have great vision. Like these processes clean out our body and help us be strong. But they're also like they're empowerment practices.
They are empowerment.
Of course, they will be bashed by a system that wants us to be enslaved.
Right. Yeah. That's what we're saying about pseudoscience.
Yeah, pseudoscience is the best. But experiment for yourself and see. You know, of course, there are some things that are quackery, but a lot like herbal medicine is not quack. Like the plants are fucking real. Like in traditional Chinese medicine, it has thousands and thousands of years of trials with like billions of people, and it works.
And it's interesting because like maybe if you look at the timeline on a larger scale, humans have been around for very much longer than Western medicine, and in fact the way that Western medicine treats certain things, like by prolonging life in a way that maybe life isn't meant to be prolonged, we're creating overpopulation. So anyway, and with that thought,
and like in elderhood, that's like people aren't aging with dignity. Yeah,
and that's one of the things that really saddens me about American value systems. So anyway,
connect with your body, connect with the gifts of nature.
Yeah, use whatever means you have available to you.
I think that one thing about herbal medicine, it's you can find most of the plants that you need often grown. There's so many in Central Park.
Oh, I know. There's like so much mugwort and goldenrod there.
Oh, interesting. Do you have a book list that I would recommend to learn more about this? Yeah, David Winston is a great resource. Looking for volunteers to unpop it. Go ahead.
Yeah.
It's all you. Enjoy.
Oh, goodness. Maybe you can email that to me,
Sure.
and we'll tweet it.
Sounds great. Okay.
That way, like if people aren't in a place to receive that information right now, they
Totally.
can come back to it. So I want to thank you for coming to our Periscope
Such a
and giving
treat.
us so much information
Thank
with
you.
your lovely energy. And my name is Dia Dynasty. If anybody has any questions, we'll take like 2 or 3 questions. Please form them in complete sentences and very politely. And we'll wait a couple minutes for your questions to be tapped out on your phone by your thumbs. Your little thumbs. And then if nobody has any questions, then you're welcome.
You're welcome.
Dadly.
Such a treat.
Then I will go ahead and make some announcements. So Lucy and I will be on a panel about race, sex, and power, and that's through Black Palace.
Yeah.
You can look them up on Instagram. It's BLK Palace, PALATE, and that will be next
The company.
the 24th, I believe.
Say
And
over
then, and then later this week,
practices.
in fact on Wednesday, Lucy and I will be going to Boston, and we'll just miss you, but we'll see each other again. So we'll be in Boston for a total of 3 days, and Goddess Aviva is going to join us as well. So if you are looking for a little bit of kinky play, or you just feel like serving 3 beautiful goddesses, email La Maison de Rouge.
None of it surprises
It's
me,
the
though.
same name of our Periscope that you're following. And that's all I have. So thank you again, Mistress Iris. Mistress Wild Iris.
Such a
Jamie Oliver's
Yeah.
not the type of person
And
that,
I
despite
hope you
news, the
guys
politics of
have a
food,
good rest of your week, and we'll see you next
is
week.
something we don't have very deep
Bye.
insight into.
For somebody who's made a huge part of his career out of the politics,